Yeah, thanks to everyone that's come in this far. Um, Lucy Bronze is the best right back in football, and that's the opinion of my 14-year-old son, and that's the power of gaming. He has a pro clubs team. He has to get chemistry right. He has to build a team, so he puts in Lucy Bronze, and this is what we're here to talk about today. We're here to talk about gaming. We're going to talk about esports, and where football clubs sit in on this journey around it. Yesterday, we heard Robbie from AFC TV talking about you got to go where audiences go, or where the audiences are, and that's really true, and that's evolving. 15 years ago, it was Facebook. Then it was Instagram. Then it was and Twitter. Now it's TikTok and Snap anywhere. But the future of social is gaming, and gaming is the choice for Gen Z, Gen Alpha. Roblox is the #1 platform for social connection for Gen Alpha, and consoles are entertainment hubs, and games are ecosystems where people don't just play. They dress their digital persona, they chat with their friends, they hang with their friends, and I'm delighted to be joined by 4 people that are heavily involved in this space. In Roisin and Jonathan and Dever and Mark, and they come from different backgrounds, working with athletes, working with leagues, working in football clubs. So this will be an interesting, good chat. Okay, we'll start with just quick intro on everybody. I'm Trev, by the way. That's all we need to know about me. Roisin, we'll start with you. Bit of a minute background.
Okay. Hi everyone. I'm Roisin. I actually work with Trev now for my sins, but I come from a background across brands, rights holders, talent, events, broadcast, social media platforms. So my background is kind of touched across every kind of side of sport that you can think of. And in terms of sports, everything from football, the Olympics, right through to weightlifting and tennis and all other sorts of things. I'm working at Epic now as Chief Growth Officer at a really interesting time where now is the time to really, if you're not already considering gaming and esports, you should be. And if you're not, why not? And is it because you're not really sure how or what? It's a completely other world. I think that's where Epic come into play. So yeah, thanks for having me on the panel.
It was the easiest one to organise.
Yeah, to be fair.
Jonathan.
Hi, so I'm Jonathan. I'm Head of Partnerships at Norwich City. So under my remit sits our esports function, so 1J Esports, and we can touch on why it's called 1J a bit later on. So yeah, I'm ultimately responsible for maximising the value for our partners across the traditional football club side of things, but then also on the 1J kind of esports side of things. Always been in and around the commercial side of football, of sport. But now predominantly looking at how we can utilise new models and new methods to attract most value for our partners and general revenue into the club.
Hi everyone, I'm Mark Scanlon. I'm Director of the League of Ireland. So we run the men's and women's professional football in Ireland at both senior and academy level. Prior to getting involved with Epic Global and running our esports competition, which we'll touch on later on, no previous experience in esports, bar playing PlayStation as a kid potentially, but my background's all been in football and in coaching and administration in football, but also a football fan and a parent of young kids. So understanding our fan engagement and how we grow has been crucially important to the development of our league and where we want to go for the next steps.
Awesome. Hey everyone, Dave Vermont is here, founder of Avalon Sports. I actually played football or soccer for 8 years professionally. Retired about 4 years ago. It was one of the hardest transitions for me to stop playing to what I do now. At Avalon Sports, we're a 360 agency, so we represent about 100 players in the NFL, exclusively on the marketing side. And over the past 24 months, really, we have been working a lot in European football. So some of the biggest clubs in Europe we represent on the marketing side. Also some of the biggest footballers that we have here. And this is a very interesting topic for us. I think, we'll get into it, but some of our players, obviously, all they do is game every day. And our goal really is to find opportunities that make sense for them. And I think this is going to be a very interesting conversation.
Okay, great. So, I mean, Roisin, we'll start here, but like football has EAFC, strikers is coming down the line. There's rumours of 2K title with FIFA. I mean, do teams and leagues need to be exploring, the gaming opportunities? Is there enough for them there? And by extension of that, should they be looking at the competitive side of it?
Yeah, so I think in short, yes, they should. But look, the reality is usually an affinity with sport happens by the age of 14. What are 14-year-olds doing now? They're gaming. They're on their phones. Their first touch point with an athlete, a club, now is going to be on their phone, whether it's a highlight clip or Fortnite or Roblox or any of these games. The non-sport titles are really, really interesting because the gaming ecosystem and the way that people engage with the professional, like the competitive, like esports, isn't for everybody, but gaming and that community is for everybody. Every 14-year-old, every 12-year-old, every 8-year-old, they're all going to be in these platforms. If your club, if your athlete, if your brand isn't there, somebody else's is. And they're capturing the hearts of these kids. Where the kids are, to your point, Trev, you've got to go to where they are. So I think from a competitive perspective, obviously there is an option to go down a professional esports team route as a club, for example. That's always an option, but I think you're going to say you've got to actually invest in that as a team, as a professional team. But what you're doing is giving younger fans a touch point with your brand, with your club, with everything about your as a rights holder, but in a completely different way. It doesn't necessarily mean that these people are going to come and buy a ticket for a game, but they potentially will buy some merch, or they will follow them on social media. They will engage with whatever products are available on Roblox, on Fortnite, whatever. So it's giving these people a touch point. Every single football club fan base is aging. So what are you doing for the next generation? You've got to get creative, and that's where there's a whole host of opportunities in gaming that, if you're not already in it, you need to be.
I suppose, David, just to bring you in there, football clubs, leagues, okay, maybe it's probably a harder of a challenge, but you see someone like Erling Haaland, going into Clash of Clans, probably the perfect game for a 14-year-old, maybe. You see, Billie Eilish, going into Fortnite. I mean, I have an 8-year-old son, and he became obsessed with Eminem because he was in Fortnite. The lyrics are a bit hard for him, I won't lie, but we've been listening to Mockingbird a lot, But when you're chatting to athletes on it, and the game, but what's what makes these crossovers work? I guess, for the athletes and celebrities.
Yeah, the Erling is actually a special case. I met him probably 5-6 years ago, and he's a killer, right? We do what he does on the pitch every Sunday, and not a lot of people really know what he represents or what he stands for off the pitch. So when we look at the commercial side of things and branding side, because at the end of the day we all want our players to look good, the club to look good, is how do we capture the younger generation, right? We have a problem right now, and I think Jonathan can speak to it too. It's 15 years ago, the number one thing we had on Sundays was maybe to go to the stadium with our family, right? My dad would take me. I didn't have a whole lot to do at home, but now we're competing with streamers. We're competing even with games. We're competing with a lot of activities that, if I'm a 10-year-old, I'm not sure if I want to go spend a Sunday, to watch football, right? So what Erling did was actually very smart because, we understand that we need to capture the younger generation. right? So we need to go where they are, and this is where they are. So it's a way of kids, or for kids to interact with him in a different way, and to look at him as an idol. Before, like I said, 10 years ago, I would watch someone on TV and say, I want to be like him. But now we need to make sure our players are whatever, the kids are and the younger generation are. Yeah. And also on the commercial side, it's so important because when we sit down with a brand or with a club and we try to tell them why they should pick our player, then we have data to go back with, right? And esports and what we're trying to build here, it's a market that, it's an emerging market, but we know the potential is crazy. So the earlier that we can get our athletes on, I think the better ROI we're going to get for them.
And just to pick on that for a second, how important it is. When the press release came out for Haaland and Clash of Clans, there was two things that kind of I picked on. One, he looks like a barbarian anyway, with his size and the hair. But he also said that he loved the game. So when you're chatting to athletes and they say, well, I want to get involved in a gaming venture or an esports venture. How important is it that they have a passion for it, or can they view it as a business opportunity as well?
I think they need to absolutely have a passion for it. Okay. It's gotta be organic. The one thing I don't want is to be chasing anybody, just force them to do something they don't want to do. It's not really a financial play. I think obviously it's a business opportunity, but it's more so how do you put him in a spot where he's more than a football player, and we as players, that's something that we fight every single day is, we play football. That's not who we are. It's just what you do for a living. You're more than a football player. So I think younger players like, Early and Rodrigo, Vinicius, they understand that, they have a great platform. They play for some of the biggest clubs in the world, but there's much more than football. And I think that if you get them to do it in a way that makes sense, something that's of interest to them, you have higher chances of, succeeding.
It was interesting. I was earlier on the year. I was down in Brazil, and I met two esports teams, and they've started to recognize that there's an opportunity in the favelas of all place to identify talent, because they have 2 mobiles for every kid. They're playing mobile first games, Green or Free Fire, and where I'm going with this, Jonathan, it's into you. Norwich, as a football club, it has this heritage of developing talent, and I suppose, and you're going to talk a bit about, how you got into esports and gaming, but it was kind of bringing that model into it almost in the same manner, and there's been some great success. Premier League, a bit more.
Yeah, it's not been a bad 3 years, is it?
Yeah.
So we're relatively, I was going to say, are we a relatively young kind of esports team, I guess? Probably not now. 3 years is probably quite a long time in that space. Yeah. Yeah. But what Trev was kind of mentioning then, so we, as anyone might know, the model of Norwich City, we don't have a huge kind of financial backer, so we have to kind of be clever about how we spend our money. What we tend to do as a club is the model that Trev was talking about then. So we bring talent from kind of the unknown, if you like, whether that's through the academy or whether that's from different markets where they're not quite established yet, bring them in, develop them, and then either make their way into the first team and hopefully add value to the team, or they end up being transferred and we reinvest that money back in. We took that model, that same model, because that's what we know at the football club, into our esports. And we initially, so 3 years ago, our strategy was very much, let's get the bet. We started working with Trev and the guys at Epic because we understood as a football club, this wasn't, our core skill wasn't running an esports team, so we needed some support in that space. Initially, we started out from our thinking was that to have the best players was going to make us the most successful esports team. So we looked to try and bring in the best kind of FIFA players. And after about 6 months, we realized that unless you're super successful, i.e. winning all the big tournaments, there wasn't really a huge revenue income stream from that. So we flipped our model and we went kind of creator-led. And actually, it's been perfect for us because we managed to bring in some really good talent that through the same model, kind of with Trev's help, bringing in kind of Chris to start with, so the kind of the Gara show. So many of you probably have never heard of Chris, but if you look on his socials, he's a very energetic, I would say, kind of character, but was brilliant for us. He brought his audience, and we worked together. He grew as we grew, and we're now at a position where we're doing roughly, we've got just shy of kind of 650,000 followers, and we're doing around about between 13 and 15 million views a month. So, and we'll probably touch on this, but we went into that because that was a new audience for us. That younger demographic wasn't something that we were hitting, attracting, getting anywhere near, to be honest, with the traditional football side of things. So to give a quick idea, the average season ticket holder at Norwich City is 49 years old. I think the 14 to 20 demographic just wasn't interested in Norwich City. So that's why we developed 1J off the back of a bit of research that said, how do we engage the younger audience? So for us, it's a key part of our strategy, but to your point, Trev, it's very much creator and content led now. So we still have like professional players who play, but the thinking is very much around how do we create content endlessly throughout the week. So it's not just 3 o'clock on a Saturday 3 till 5 that we can engage. This is constant non-stop engagement through really, I use the word again, engaging talent that we've got across our social channels, which is, it's been great for us over the last 3 years.
Yeah, and it's Paul down there, and he did the panel with Mike from Juventus, and they're talking about their creator hub, and you can see what they're trying to tap into, working with Optic and working with embracing creators and embracing that, not seeing it as a as a rival or a challenging audience. And I suppose Mark, to bring you in, I mean different at league level, it's probably similar to a club, but you're in the game, you're a partner of EA, like, does it make sense even then as a strategy to have an E-League alongside it? There's only, I think it's 19 official around the world, of which League of Ireland is one.
Yeah, it absolutely makes sense. I think for a league to embrace it, you have two options around everything with esports. You can either ignore it because the traditional side is, well, okay, we don't want them esports, we want them out playing football, and all we have to do is look at the picture on the wall of Johan Cruyff and look at everything else there. The jerseys have changed, the boots have changed, the football has changed. Every part has changed and everything evolves, and we have to evolve with it as well. So our engagement with fans has evolved, and important from our point of view, specifically in the league, we have some challenges that probably lots of other leagues in Europe wouldn't have. We're on the doorstep of the biggest league in the world, in the Premier League. Irish consumers, fans are consumed with content from the Premier League on a daily basis. So in order for us to engage with the audience, Roisin's already mentioned that it's up till 14 is that crucial age. For us, it's even younger really in the Irish context of a primary school. The kids finish at 12, and as far as I'm concerned, if they're not a League of Ireland fan by 12 years of age, we'll have lost them. If they go to secondary school as a Premier League fan first and foremost, then that's where they're going to stay. Whereas we'd like to see them watch more football, Premier League, Champions League, football from all around Europe and the world. But first and foremost, we want them to have an affinity with our league and their local clubs. And esports,
and the championship.
And the championship and below. We've Irish players right the way down, and Irish TV is shown all the way to League Two and Scottish Premier League. So we're competing in that broadcast market, which is difficult for us. So it's important for us to make sure that we have ways to engage with the audience. So the whole area of gamification for us was important. Things that we're trying to grow into the league, like fantasy leagues and prediction challenge. But specifically around esports, we had an opportunity 2 years ago, and Trev and the team at Epic Global were banging down our door to say, we want to run an esports competition. And we were saying, no, wait, we're just about to do a rebrand. So when we done the rebrand of the league, we made a specific part of our brand architecture being ELOI. So whereas the League of Ireland had all its new logos for all of the various different divisions, where we had a new logo for our streaming service with LOI TV, we incorporated a key part of that brand being esports, and we created an ELOI logo specifically. We then ran the first competition, which was hugely successful in the first year. Lots of online views, a relatively small but really good event for a finals in our national stadium in the Aviva Stadium, but more of a sort of room of this size, if you like, with a number of the players there, and expanded that already in the second year to being a much bigger event at a big venue in Dublin City Centre. And we've just seen how the opportunity for growth in that again, to make that even bigger and better as the next few years go on, will really help our younger audience engage with our football clubs. You mentioned already they're on EAFC, which again is huge for us. We're probably the smallest league on that, on the game, if you like. So it gives us an opportunity for, again, our young gamers, our young fans who are going to go on to the game and play. Well, can they engage and play with a League of Ireland team? And you know, when we had our finals this year, to see our champions of that being UCD, who were a university team in Ireland, when they qualified, even on their social media channels, it's saying it's the third time the club has now qualified for Europe. So they've done it twice on the football side, once on the esports side, and it's an opportunity for them. And then they go on in the E-Champions League to draw with Man City. So that wouldn't happen for us in the context of the 11-a-side game and on the pitch. So an opportunity to compete at a higher level in esports gives us great exposure for the league and our clubs.
Yeah, I mean, everything you've said there is brilliant. The most poignant thing for me is how often we're told to wait, which is quite often. I mean, given it like we kind of moving across, and I suppose it's bringing Roisin back in a bit, and like the Roblox, okay, and you know, there's concerns, there's challenges about it, you know, from kids' behaviour. But I suppose we're talking here to a room of rights holders, and how many of them probably know that their IP is probably being used in the game unofficially, you know? So, and we're probably seeing this across other ecosystems as well. And I mean, is that something that you turn a blind eye to, or is it something you embrace, or is it something you kind of go, wow, how do we do better with this?
I think, look, it'll come down to the commercial side of things, right? Every single commercial team is looking for a new revenue stream. Each year they're trying to increase the percentage that they're getting from their existing partners. They're under pressure. This, you know, you mentioned there about people's IP being used in Roblox currently. Probably all of yours is in Roblox right now, and you're not getting a penny for it. Whereas actually, if you were to create a world around your club, your brand, your athlete, you could monetize that and bring in significant revenue that is currently untapped, but could be used. It's not just a touch point for new fans. Like, they may never watch a clip on Twitter because they're not on Twitter, but you spend all that time and energy cutting those clips and putting them out on Twitter. You get this touch point with the fan who's never heard of Barcelona as a club, but they go to Roblox and they see a world around Barcelona or Ajax, and they see these streets and they see all the brands and all the athletes, and they want to buy a jersey, like a Roblox jersey. So you're now cashing in on, this is where Sinead from Epic mentioned, she describes Roblox as a shopping centre for kids. They go and they spend their pocket money on Roblox. You want them to be spending their pocket money on your product, your IP. And Roblox is a really interesting space that currently, as far as I'm concerned, is completely untapped. And it's something that we're building out at Epic to help rights holders create their world within Roblox to drive this brand new revenue stream, but also tap into this brand new audience who they might come across a player or, you know, your brand. Like I said, they may never have seen a game on TV because they're not watching the games on TV. But they may just might watch a game because they're in that world on Roblox, and they want to know what Lucy Bronze does when she's not in Roblox. She actually plays professional football for one of the best women's team in the world, and national team. And there you go. You've engaged, you know, an 8-year-old girl in a whole new way that you would never have been able to do at a stadium.
It's actually, we were chatting before, Mark, and like you know, you were saying to me, we were having a chat about Roblox, and like the League of Ireland is in Roblox unofficially. Like,
yeah, it was an interesting one for us because again, it's a newer world for me myself, and obviously I've heard a bit about the game but didn't fully understand it. And then all of a sudden, this Twitter account popped up as the official League of Ireland Roblox account, and we said, where's this come from? So we had to get in touch with them and say, you need to take the word official off it. But it started to have us thinking of what the possibilities were around that. And I think it's an area that, again, we definitely want to embrace. As I said, the younger audiences that we can get in, the better. It's really important for us at the minute. We're currently the fastest growing sport in Ireland on our social media accounts. We've had a huge attendance growth over the last few years. Our streaming service is starting to improve year on year. And the league is in a place that it hasn't been before. We've got some really good stories to tell around it, lots of good characters, loads of media attention, and the league is growing. And for us to continue that and make it sustainable, and you know, Jonathan's statistics on the average age of season ticket holders wouldn't be dissimilar in Ireland as well, although in the last few years it has dropped thanks to some good family offers. But I suppose at that stage we had the space in our stadiums that you wouldn't have had being sell-out stadiums. Now we're getting to the stage where most of our stadiums they're a lot smaller than stadiums in bigger leagues, but starting to sell out. So again, not every kid is going to be in the stadium on a weekly basis. So that engagement in them areas and exploring the opportunities that are around Roblox. Ironically enough, some of the stadiums look better in Roblox than they do in real life in the League of Ireland, unfortunately. But hopefully we can build some real ones that'll be a bit bigger as well.
And like, just like, you know, on that, like, I mean, you know, and like, you know, you come from coaching background, you know, you're on the pitch working with kids, and you know, I know there's life balances and all that, but like, do you see a situation like, and I know you're going to tell me wait, but do you see a situation where like leagues, you know, need to be on, like, will there be, you know, a FIFA World Cup played out in a Roblox environment or similar, you know, Fortnite, whatever it is? Like, do you think that's a feasible thing, or is that a stretch too far, or is it maybe it's kind of, well, let's see, you know, it's possible?
Yeah, I think it is possible. I think it's moving in that direction. If you had asked me that question 4 or 5 years ago on esports, as in EAFC tournament, I would have said, no, that'll never happen. You'll never see big venues where that'll go. People will still just play that at home. But seeing how quickly that area has moved on, it's definitely going to move on to the next thing now as well. So I think that the likes of Roblox and others have been vitally important for that. And again, you know, go back to your side in terms of the players themselves and how they can improve their own brand. For the younger generation as well. I think as long as that's embraced with the superstars, like, you know, last week we held the UEFA Europa League final in Dublin, and it was fascinating to see the audience there and how that's changed since we last held it in 2011. There was as much of a furore around the influencers that were around the game as there was of the ex-legends who were coming to play the five-a-side game in Dublin Castle beforehand. Whereas 13 years ago, that would have been all about people coming to see the ex-players play. Now and last week there was as many kids and younger people excited about getting pictures with influencers, and people are in different areas. So again, it moves on, and we have to evolve with it. From our point of view in the League of Ireland, we've been very open to that change, because we've almost you know, started from a very different base, a lower fan base, and having to look at new and different and more innovative ways to engage the audience. I think we've done that really well so far, and we want to continue to try stay up the top of the game in that area. And esports, gamification, everything that we can do around our digital and social content is crucially important to us.
Yeah. I mean, for those that are interested in the audience, the Walmart has recently integrated e-commerce into Roblox. So, you know, to the point that was made about the shopping centre, this is happening. You've got immersive ads, which is like the equivalent of your LED, but in a digital environment. So, you know, it's not, you know, it's not impossible that in a few years you could be watching, you know, a game with your Roblox character or whatever other environment embraces it quicker. You know, and I suppose, you know, come back to the athletes, you know, piece on it again. I mean, and it's probably going to be a similar enough answer. You know, we can probably maybe copy and paste, but like you know, you look at the future of kind of athletes, and you know, mention Clash of Clans, but like, is this the future? Being in these platforms, and like, how does an athlete, like, you can see the Haaland effect again, just use it with Clash, he looks like a barbarian, but you know, you take a Vinny, hopefully a Champions League winner tomorrow night, but without that Real Madrid jersey on, you know, how can he transcend into the gaming space and you know, basically embrace it?
Right, I think that's key. So one thing that obviously we try to tell the guys is that, you know, when you play for a club like Real Madrid, obviously I think that badge on the jersey, it changes everything, right? Because you're exposed to the world. And we want Vini to stay at Real Madrid forever, but I mean, nothing's guaranteed, right? It could be a year or two when Vinny's leaving, and when he leaves, if he didn't build that, you know, we're gonna talk about branding specifically. If he didn't build that brand and he didn't earn those fans when he leaves Madrid, that's gonna be, I'm not gonna say it's gonna be over, but it will be the same, right? So, you know, from our perspective, it's how do we, you know, back to your point, is how do we win those fans early on? And, you know, we don't want the players to depend specifically on the club, but we want their players to build their own path, regardless of how they play. You know, we understand obviously how they perform on the pitch is going to be the most important thing for people. But are they, you know, when they're playing at their highest level, is how do we win and how we, you know, we can put them in those positions. In esports specifically, there's many cases. You look at, you know, Sergio Aguero, right? So he suddenly leaves Barcelona. You know, he had a couple of more years, I think, to play at the highest level. He had been streaming and playing years prior to that incident happening. Now this is what he does for a living. You know, he owns an esports teams with, you know, his partners with Messi, which are good friends. So like this is something that he adopted early on, and it's really a path towards that transition. Because we didn't talk about, you know, too much about, you know, you transitioning from your playing career into something else, and you don't really have as many options. You know, we don't make as much money. All the players don't make as much money as A1 players. So can we bring an opportunity that could be potentially a good business model for them, and at the same time something they enjoy? So I think the future is now, and I think we're gonna see more players going into ownership, into creating their own characters, into being a part of this world, because I think this is just, you know, it's a no-brainer for them.
Yeah. And I suppose, Jonathan, like, I mean, you know, we've seen clubs kind of go into the metaverse. You know, Inter Milan recently went into Fortnite. It's quite interesting. I mean, like, how do you see it, like, the evolving? Like, do you look at something like Roblox and Fortnite as, do you see them as maybe that metaverse, or do you still look at, I'm sure so many opportunities come into as a club, and like, even like from that point of view, like, how do you pick what's the right opportunity on it? You know, take an audience even out of the equation, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult one. We are approached often about new ideas, new platforms, new environments, and it's a difficult one to pick which ones do we do, which ones we don't. Often it's a commercial decision. So what's the offer on the table? Traditionally, football clubs are very bad at looking long term. So it's kind of, we're probably not looking at it going, right, in 10 years' time, what's this platform going to look like? I think traditionally a lot of football clubs go, it's a quick win. We try not to do that. We try to we have to think differently from what I was saying earlier. So for us, we want to be where the audience is. We have a challenge for our club that young kids, there's a general theme here is there's a young audience that we're all trying to get hold of. The whole couple of days is about how do we engage an audience. This is a particular subset, i.e. a younger demographic, and our approach is that esports and gaming is the best way to engage or obtain and engage and continue to engage and grow up the funnel. So this is definitely the route forward for us. It's kind of, and again, for transparency, we work quite closely with the guys at Epic who inform us and update us on what we should be doing, because it isn't our core skill. So we'd almost throw it back to you, Trev, and go, which one should we be in? But for us, there will always be a commercial element to it, but it's got to be about how do we continue to grow that audience. And to be clear, what we're not doing is looking to build a 1J audience, so an esports audience, to sell them a ticket to Carrow Road and Norwich City football match. We see it very much as two completely different businesses, almost, which is the reason, so very quickly, we call it 1J Esports. So our postcode at Carrow Road is NR1 1JE. So the 1J Esports is kind of a nice kind of spin on why we've called it that, with the long-term view that we completely divorce the two. So we would have fans of 1J who might be Man United fans, Liverpool fans, Man City fans. So they wouldn't have any affiliation to Norwich City. So from that sense, we don't want to sell them Norwich City things. We actually want to build an engaging audience, an engaging offering in the esports space. And No doubt. I don't think we're ever going to pick one space. Like, it's not just going to be Roblox and that's it. So we have ongoing conversations around metaverses, and even then it's like, how many metaverses are there? Because does anyone even really understand that space? Roblox, other titles that we've discussed, should we go into? But 100% as an esports team for a football club, we'll be looking at other titles. And I'm sure for anyone who's in the room who's a football club that's potentially looking at esports, FC is naturally the easiest step. We did it because at the time FIFA was an easy step, so we're a football club, having an esports FIFA team seems like a natural thing to do. If we did it again, we'd probably look at another title. And what that gives us is that flexibility. Then there are, again, for any kind of football club, it's probably the same as yourself, nervousness a little bit about which titles you go into, because like shoot 'em ups and things for a football club traditionally is a little bit kind of, we can't really have our fans shooting guns, and that's going to look really bad PR wise. Whereas actually on 1J, because we kind of have that separation, we can have a lot more flexibility on what kind of content we create, which games and titles we go into. And I'm way off the question right now, but so to come back to the question, which is the right platform? Like multiple. Roblox certainly will be one that like we are discussing and about to announce. But there will be other platforms even in the next 6 months, 12 months, 18 months that will definitely explore and most likely enter, because I don't think you can't afford to not be in those spaces, because as you talked about earlier, Roisin, it's if you're not there, someone else is going to be, and that's our competition.
Can I ask you as well, though, just choosing the titles, it's about like who you're trying to reach, right? Each title, each game has a different player. And I think it's interesting about just the ecosystem of the professional esports. Like if you did decide to go to Dota 2, what does that look like from a professional perspective? Prize money. It's huge. What is it, Trev, for TI?
So, well, the Esports World Cup this year is going to be 60 million. 60 million, yeah.
That's new money for you guys.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it is a good point. They, like the prize pools across the top tier, you know, and I suppose for some context about that is what happened traditionally in esports was when people got together in rooms, you know, and I'm talking the mid 2000s here now, they all got together in gaming cafes and they competed in tournaments, and then they'd look for an org to play under a banner, and because that org or team wouldn't pay them, they would go, right, we'll support you. And we'll give you 90% of the winnings, and we'll take 10% as our efforts, almost like an agent fee. And esports evolved, salaries started to jump. Like the average CSGO player now gets about 30,000 a month in a top tier environment. They still get 90% of the prize pool, because it never evolved.
Changed.
And it's only now starting to shift in favor of the team, as, to be very honest, more football executives get involved in top tier esports teams and hang on and go, you're doing what? You know? So things, you know, esports has a role with football, but football has a role to play with esports organizations in bringing that maturity, that common sense, that management, that commercialization into their world. So, yeah.
And that's ultimately where we've looked at it and kind of said, there is, right now, massive numbers, huge numbers, and the competition kind of, the tournament win pot, or tournament pots to win are crazy because the huge audience numbers there. We strongly believe that if we're in the game long enough, there is a massive revenue earner in the end. We have to stay in that game. So it's costing, because we've got to pay the players, and at the moment, if they do win tournaments, then like you said, they still get the lion's share of that income. But once the world starts to mature, and like the football world is different, right? Because we've got rights holders and they pay big checks for broadcast fees, and that's the money that kind of dribbles down. There kind of needs to be that moment, I guess, in esports where it's like, right, okay, structure, and everyone understands the structure then, and it's. I mean, you tell me, but that's when we, as Norwich City or 1J, think that's when the brands really start to invest, and that's when we start to see, because we've built up the audience at that point, the strategy right now is still build your audience, build your audience. I think it was a topic earlier or yesterday. It's build your audience, engage your audience, and then ultimately monetize when the time's right. We're still in that building the audience phase, but we are confident that there is a big win down the line. Many rights holders at the moment probably sitting there kind of going, do I get involved, do I get involved? But the longer you take to get involved, the longer it's going to take you to kind of get that audience to the place where it will flip, and then we're great guns.
Yeah. We're in the red here, so there's is there any questions from anybody? Anybody disagree? Anybody want to tell us all get off stage, have tomatoes in their pockets? Or has anybody got something that's, they want to ask her any day at the panelists? Yep.
Maybe a question for you, Jonathan. I fully understand you take it as a separate brand because you have more flexibility in what you bring out there. But how far would you say that the connection still needs to be towards the team where probably the players but also the panelists still have a starting connection with?
Yeah, so we've juggled with this quite a bit. So at the start, we said, let's definitely leverage Norwich City's IP, our audience, our existing audience, to build a kind of kickstart the audience for 1J. I think it's probably fair to say that 1J now is a strong enough platform by itself to attract its own audience, because the Norwich City audience isn't probably going to convert across to 1J anymore. We still have activations where we bring the football side talent in, so professional players, Johnny Rowe, for example, playing against our professional esports players for content. So still there is a bit of a blurred line there, but the direction of travel is we'll slowly kind of move away from that, because, like to my point earlier, we almost don't want people to have the association between the esports team and the football club, because we don't want other fans of football clubs put off being a 1J fan. But very much to start with, we've got a decent platform here already with Norwich City. It would be silly to start from zero with esports and just try and grow it when you've got probably a little bit of unknown talent there. Because again, what we didn't do is go out and buy the biggest talent. We kind of found some really great talent. So right now we've got, we've got 2 academy players, 3 full-time players, and 2 kind of content creators. But I mean, the players kind of blur into content creators as well. So we've kind of started to build a bit of a roster there where it's 1J standalone. So we are trying to move away from it, but there is still, for some partners, the value in, can I still get Josh Sargent? Can I still get Johnny Rowe playing in my esports shirt with my name on it? So there's still a bit of that, but gradually we want to move away from it.
But that is just one way to do it, and I do think there is, and it's been done where a football club has had an esports team, and they've leveraged that affinity with that brand because it's much stronger. And to your point, it was the entry point, but there's no reason why you don't continue that, because again, what you ultimately want is more fans of your club, whether it is the esports team or the football club. It doesn't matter. There's a case for both, as long as the key is to invest as much energy and time in that esports entity as you would the football.
But the reason I'm asking is because in our club it's very connected still. They also carry our own brands as an esports team as well. But if you research what they want to get out of it as an esports fan or a Club Brugge fan in our case, it's still very much linked to the physical thing. They still want to win a shirt. They still want to. It's not about digital assets and so on. That's why I was wondering, like, how separate you keep it away from the football.
Can I answer that just from our point of view as a league? How that's been, it was one of the main goals for us coming in the league and expanding into that new audience was like that, getting the shirts of all the clubs out there who wouldn't necessarily be there. So all of a sudden, by having a professional esports player who played at a really high level, had a really big following, and they're now wearing a team who's in our second tier jersey and speaking to their audience in that way, has actually helped us leverage promotion for all of them clubs. So most of them esports players had no affinity whatsoever with the club they're representing, but part of the rules that we had for the esports league was that the clubs had to provide us with a jersey, with a player. If they didn't know anyone in the esports, we would work with them to try and find somebody to represent them. Some of them decided to do it as like they run a competition within their club, and whoever won the competition now represented the club in the national one, which was fine. And some of them decided to go, well, we actually want to win this competition and we want to get the best esports player in Ireland. and that's been really useful for us because it's helped us grow the brand in a different way, where our clubs are now gaining exposure that they wouldn't have before, including things like TV programs in Ireland that they wouldn't have been on, like, you know, regular TV programs and nothing got to do with sport, where they ventured into the world of tech and esports and everything else, and it just opened up a whole new audience because, again, from our point of view, we have that constant battle of trying to fight against the sports fans' affinity for bigger and better leagues across Europe. So it gave us a chance to try tap into that from an early stage, and it's been hugely successful for us to make sure that it was the brand of the league that was identified with it, and that's why we created a specific ELOI as part of the brand architecture when we done a rebrand.
Just on that point, though, even with the club, because I think you were in Rainbow Six for a while now, club? Counter-Strike. Like, we worked with a couple of athletes that had different teams, and if they had a bad game on the Saturday, it was amazing that they could not post up if their team was competing, because it just ended up, you know, being a challenging social situation for them. So it's, you know, you have to find the model that's right for the club, for the player, you know, for the league on it, you know. But yeah, it can be interesting, particularly if it's a bad defeat.
Trev, one final point on that, which is interesting, is the scheduling of the esports. So for us, one of the benefits we have in the league, say, compared to the national team, is that we've got always on content during the season. So we play every week, the league is putting out content, the clubs are putting out content. But during times like the international window or our off season, which is the winter in Ireland because we're a summer season, it gives us a great opportunity to leverage the opportunities for esports during their particular windows, which then gives us 12-month a year content. So when the cup final ends in November and the season doesn't start again until February, how can we continue to engage that audience during the off season? Particularly around the area esports, that runs straight into Christmas then. So again, at that Christmas time, that's where people are getting consoles, they're getting new games, and if they're engaged with us, particularly on the EAFC side, and they get the new EAFC when it comes out in September, October time, or then kids get it at Christmas time, if straight away their idea is going, picking a League of Ireland team, playing with an ultimate team on that. Like, for example, when we had our finals this year, one of the rules around it was the player, they could pick a certain number of players who've had to have played in the league before. So we've had superstars who've played like 3 or 4 games in the league back in the 60s and 70s. So all of a sudden we have this university team playing in a final where Bobby Charlton is taking a penalty for them and George Best is playing up front because they played a few games in the league. You know, again, people saying, oh, that player played in the league, or somebody was involved in the League of Ireland before, and bringing that out has you know, merged the superstars on the ultimate team side into the League of Ireland, and it's again just helped us grow and create a different audience as well. So it's been an interesting time, and I think certainly from a league perspective, more so necessarily than a club perspective, the timing of the esports competitions for us to create content that runs all year round then and filling gaps that there's no football on has been really useful.
There's a massive please wrap up flashing at me here. So thanks so much, guys. That was brilliant. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you.